Hello Mixology hackers and welcome back to another episode after a little break from me again, but apologies because life sometimes take turns which I can't control. Nothing bad, everything it's okay, just been busy, traveling, work, family stuff, so I kind of decide to take a little step back so I can concentrate and get everything done and then come back to you when everything is sorted. So all good, and today I'm gonna take it kind of a nice and easy, just to get back to some speed with my videos. There's plenty coming your way, but today we're gonna talk mainly sugar. Okay, sugar, mixology hackers. Yes, sugar is something which we take on daily basis, like it or not. Is it coming from your food? Is it coming from something which you prepare? Do you buying sugar? Do you extracting? Do you cook with it? Do you make syrups, fermentations? Anything. Sugar is always around, and to a certain level it's necessary for some products. For certain products it's not necessary, but we tend to add sugar to make things a little bit sweeter, or maybe help extract flavor, or maybe preserve things. So sugar can be used in many different scenarios, and on this channel, as you've seen so far with a few videos which we have, we use sugar for different purposes. And we are going to use sugar a lot going forward. So a little understanding of the sugar, it's not harm, and maybe help you to decide when you prepare different ingredients why you want to use this sugar, or also help you to understand in some cases why I'm using a certain sugar. So a sugar is made mainly extracting juice from the sugar beet or a sugar cane. Now that's kind of in one line, and I can stop the video here and we are happy. But the different sugar varieties, it's possible through adjustments as well. And also I am reading a little notes on the side, so if I'm looking this way sometime, just so you know. So with different adjustments and process of cleaning, crystallizing and drying, you can get a different variety and level of sugar, and depends if it's purified or if it's using molasses, and all these kind of different elements which make the different type of sugar. Now in front of me I've put only 4 types of sugar, just because, just kind of for visual. You have the white crystal sugar, which we all have, pretty much every household. You have the brown Demerara sugar. You have Muscovado sugar here. And on the end, I did add a little bit of organic coconut sugar, because yes, you can have our lovely coconut sugar as well to use. And in fact, we're gonna be using it in the next episode, where I'm going to teach you how to make tepache from pineapple peels, and how to obviously ferment it, and how to do a double fermentation and add flavor, and how to play with the sugar. But today, so what is the different types of sugar? It could be classified in several ways, including crystal, which is granulated, powdered, or superfine. Depends for what it's used. So usually the crystal sugar we're using like for coffees, or even little cooking, or different type of like a household needs. The powdered, it's really easy for doing baking stuff and icing, and also using to fast dissolve when it's needed fast dissolving, because obviously it's a powder, it's dissolving really fast. And the superfine, again, same, it's helping with a quick dissolving, quick mixture, depends of the situation you want to use it. So another difference, like I show you in the example here, the sugar could be white, or could be brown, or could be very dark. For example, like the dark Muscovado sugar. I love dark Muscovado sugar. Originally it's used mostly for baking and cakes, but I do like to make a dark Muscovado sugar syrup to using in some cocktail recipes, because it's very rich on a sweetness and very rich in flavor. So it's introducing extra flavor to the cocktails you making with the Muscovado sugar. So that's another part which you kind of need to be careful, because it's changing the profile of the cocktail as well. It's adding in flavor. When the crystal white sugar, is basically just adding a sweetness. So the sugar color, that's another kind of a point we need to touch a little bit based on. Why the sugar is white, why the sugar is brown, why it's dark. It depends obviously how much molasses you add to the sugar or you leave before purifying the sugar. Because basically the sugar, it's made pretty simple. So the juice is extracted, then it's boiled, then it's crystallized, then it's purified, then it's, in some cases it's boiled again, then again it's purified to become the white sugar. In some cases, part of the molasses could be left into the sugar and you can have a light brown sugar. In other cases, the molasses is added after the sugar is purified to make it darker. So it depends on the production, depends on the type of sugar. It's using different techniques, but basically to simplify and to make it easy for you, remember white sugar doesn't have any molasses. Anything with color have added or leftover molasses in the process of production or purifying or crystallizing or cleaning. So it depends what type of sugar we're using. So let's start with the white sugar. White sugar or granulate sugar as we know it, or a table sugar, is produced by refining sugar cane. Type of white sugar could be granulate, which is obviously the one which we know in everyday use, which I have in front of me. For example, this in front of me, it's actually castor sugar, but let's for a moment say it's a granulate sugar because I'm not using that much granulate sugar. So the granulate sugar, it's a white sugar, it's refined sugar that it's like a food processor whiten and grind into a size similar to a table salt. So that's what it is. Then we have the superfine sugar, which is sometimes referred to a castor sugar, and that's what I have in front of me. It's a superfine. The choice of me using a castor sugar is because it's dissolving fairly quickly. So when I do a syrups or I use sous vide or I need quick dissolve of the sugar, the castor sugar is dissolved pretty quickly, and also it's helping when I want to create a syrup just on the room temperature, or for example want to do oleo sacrum, which we've done on the channel, so you can watch this episode. That helps because it's very fine. The castor sugar, it's extract the oil from the citrus peels and it's melt fairly quickly compared to the normal granulate sugar. So the powder sugar, also known as a confectioner sugar, it's usually used in the baking industry. However, the powder sugar, it's mixed with a little bit of the cornstarch, and the reason it's mixed is so it doesn't become like on a small like a lumps. Usually they call them like a bakings or something like that. I'm not really familiar with the pastry stuff. But the corn prevent the sugar to become like a thick next to each other to stick together. So it's staying powdered and it's dry. And this is basically why they mix a little bit with the cornstarch. I use it sometime. I admit, sometime I use it, and sometime I actually use in a cocktail recipe as a spoon of powdered sugar. Not because I can't use sugar syrup, but because, let me just show you, I think it's here. For example, there's a book which it's, let me just show you here. See how broken is this book anyway. This is the Complete World Bartender Guide, a very old book, very, very old. Anyway, some of the recipes here call for a spoon of powdered sugar, and as much I can do it with the sugar syrup, I like sometimes to follow the authentic recipes just to see what is the difference, and then if I decide to change with the liquid or with the sugar syrup, I can adjust it accordingly to match the recipe, okay? Because a spoon of sugar, it's totally different when it's to a liquid form, okay? The sweetness, the concentration, depends what kind of syrup I made. Is it rich syrup? Is it just a normal syrup? People call it simple syrup. It's not that simple, but that's a totally different. Actually, let's mention why it's not simple, because it's really important what kind of sugar you're going to use, what kind of water, how much you're going to boil it, or just going to dissolve it cold. It's not simple, yeah? It takes few steps to make it, but for, I don't know, just kind of a general purpose, we always call it a simple syrup. I just call it sugar syrup. So, the next sugar we're gonna talk about is the brown sugar. So the brown sugar here in front of me, it's made from crystallizing sucrose and molasses, which is responsible for the distinctive color of the sugar. Now, usually we know this sugar under different names, which we're gonna talk about it, but compared to the granulate white sugar, the brown sugar provides a touch of extra flavor. So it could be a caramel, could be a little bit more sweetness. It's definitely have flavor compared to the white sugar. So the type of the brown sugar depends on the amount of the molasses you mix with the white sugar. So more molasses you put, more darker it became, different type of sugar, okay? So the light brown sugar, it's basically this what it's in front of me. You can find in the shops as a Demerara sugar, could be light, could be darker, but in general it's like a light, and it have a certain small amount of molasses inside, because as you can see it's sprinkled, it's not stick to each other, which it means it doesn't contain that much molasses, so it doesn't have that much stickiness and humidity inside, so it's easy to use. The dark brown sugar, on the other hand, contain approximately 6.5% of molasses by weight, and it's a little bit more kind of a sticky. And if you ever buy dark Demerara sugar from the shop, you know when you open it, it's like a falling in the jar. If you transfer it to a jar, it's falling like just a mass, like a small lava, I like to call it, because it doesn't sprinkle on the single grain. It's just going slowly like a one paste. Like little bits, like just a type of, you know, my kids have like a play sand. I don't know if you have kids and if you've seen play sand, but it's like that. It's sticky, but it's separating. It's just a weird feeling. But yeah, it's lovely sometimes to use dark brown sugar or Demerara sugar. And again, most of the sugar, it's kind of related to a baking and pastries and things like that. But in our world in mixology, it's related to liquid heaven, as we call it, because we can create wonderful things. For example, with the light Demerara sugar, we did a wonderful pineapple syrup and a banana syrup on the channel. So if you missed these episodes, make sure you watch them. But you can also use a very dark Demerara sugar, and you can use it for a wonderful old-fashioned, for example, just to make a Demerara sugar syrup without any extras. Or if you want to go crazy, why don't you grill a pineapple and then make dark smoky pineapple syrup with a dark Demerara sugar. So far I hope you're staying with me, and it's kind of I'm pretty sure you know these things which I'm saying of general knowledge. You maybe didn't know something, but I hope you're giving you kind of a little more insight of what you can use these sugars for. And before I go further, I'm gonna stop here just to say, so in general, that's my preference. Just remember, it's my preference. It's no anything I like to point or say you're doing wrong. It's absolutely my preference, but if you want to follow, it'll be absolutely fantastic. So when I use fresh fruit to create syrups, or I use light ingredients, I always use white sugar or a caster sugar. Only extremely situation, if I want to change the color or the sweetness profile and the final flavor, I may use dark. 99% I'm using white sugar. Why? Because I want to preserve the flavor of the white fruit or the light fruit or the ingredients which I'm using, and I don't want to introduce any extra color. When it comes to dark fruit and dark ingredients, or maybe syrups which I'm going to be using with dark spirits, then I use Demerara sugar. Again, I leave 1% for the white sugar because I may decide, for example, with the white sugar, I did pineapple syrup and I show you how to do it Demerara sugar. So it's totally two different syrups. The difference is very obvious. When you do with the white sugar the pineapple syrup, you have this lovely, fresh, light, golden color syrup, which it's not only fresh and light to look at it, but also when you try it, it's really fresh and light. When you use dark Demerara sugar, you're introducing extra flavor, extra caramel, extra heaviness, extra thickness, and the syrup became more heavy, and it's more kind of a mixture of the fruit and the caramel and a dark how to say, aromas and taste, because the sugar obviously have molasses inside, so this is introducing extra flavor. So in general, that's my rules. 99% light, fresh things. I like to use castor sugar or white sugar. Dark fruit or heavy things, or depends what I'm planning to do. Is it going to be mixed with dark spirits or white spirits? I use Demerara sugar. That is just my suggestion. Okay? So cane sugar. Unlike the granulate sugar, which can be produced from sugar cane or a sugar beets, the cane sugar, it's 100% cane sugar. And the types of the cane sugar, it's 3 types. So you have unrefined, raw, and refined sugar. The sugar is different how it's processed. So basically the process is essentially a rinsing process. So the rinsing process helps to remove some, most, or all of the molasses. So it depends how much you leave. You're gonna get the white, the lightly brown, or a dark brown as well. So the unrefined sugar, it's included product like the Muscovado. So this is the Muscovado in front of me. So the Muscovado, it's dark and contains most of the molasses. Now, again, you can have light Muscovado, like in front of me at the moment, or you can have dark Muscovado. I don't tend to buy very often dark Muscovado, not for home at all, because I don't bake much. I cook, but I don't bake. But sometimes I buy for the bar, which I run and I work, because we do a dark Muscovado sugar syrup for a velvet old-fashioned. So that's a wonderful, silky old-fashioned, which is more related to, kind of orientated to people who it's new to the whiskey, because you have a wonderful base of bourbon. You have Pedro Ximénez sherry, which is over 30 years aged sherry, very sweet. And we have the dark Muscovado sugar. All this combined together is bring really velvety, smooth, and very lovely old-fashioned variation, which you can watch on Just Shake or Stir if you fancy to make one. The cocktail is there. So this is the Muscovado sugar. Now the raw sugar, it's contained like a few different, like a turbinado, which I never use. It's mainly for baking and things like that. So I don't think you're ever going to use it, but hey, if you ever use turbinado, let me know how it is. I've never used it. Honestly, never. And obviously the Demerara, which we've seen earlier, the raw sugar retain a small, but still significant part of the molasses, and obviously that brings extra flavor. And finally, the refined sugar, it's included with granulate sugar, baker sugar, how they call it, or confection sugar, which I mentioned previously. This is the powder sugar, the castor sugar, and it's the purest of all. That's the white sugar, so it's refined, pretty much 100% molasses, it's removed. So it's definitely the finest of them all. Okay, now, I'm not a big fan of the white sugar. For example, in my coffee, I never drink coffee with white sugar. I always drink it with Demerara sugar because I like this little bit caramel to the coffee. And also I find it a little bit more healthier, but that's a different story. Obviously, everybody have different tastes. Like for example, my wife, she loves coffees with milk and she never uses sugar. The only time she uses sugar is when she drinks espresso, but she always uses white. She doesn't like the brown. So that's more like personal preference. Of course, when it comes to cocktails, to fermentations, to infusions and things like that, the preference is not always the case. It's more about getting the best product or the best final result. So I hope you're still with me. A few more things and I'm gonna let you go. Or if you wanna stop, you can always pause the video, go make a coffee, use whatever sugar you like, and obviously come back. So let's talk a little bit about the Muscovado sugar. Now, I presume, and I think not many of you used Muscovado sugar when it's come to the homemade mixology ingredients. Baking, yes, but mixology, not all the time. So, if you're not familiar, it's also called a Barbados sugar. That's how it's known, but in general, you go in the shop and you see Muscovado sugar. This is the unrefined sugar cane, contain natural molasses. So It's not added like in some other cases. This is contained, the natural molasses. It comes in a dark and a light varieties, like I mentioned before, and it's a sticky, moist, and sandy. So that's why I mentioned the playing sand for the kids, because it's literally like, you know, when you go on the beach, yeah, and you have like a damp sand, not really wet damp, and you pick it up, you're just falling nicely like small paste. So basically that's how is the Demerara sugar. It has a rich and very complex flavor, and people say, and I agree with that, it's more like a toffee-like flavor. It's not caramel, it's more like a toffee. So when you eat toffee, it kind of reminds me of the Muscovado sugar. The Demerara sugar, it's extracted from the sugar cane, and it's minimally refined. So it still have some of the molasses inside, have large grain, so it's not that small like, let's say, the castor sugar. Sometimes you can get a fine Demerara sugar, which is gonna be a little bit more stickier than the fine grain, and that's because it's gonna be containing more molasses. It's not because it's smaller and it stick together, it's because it's contain more molasses, so it have more moisture and it's more sticky. The good Demerara sugar, like in this case, what I have here in front of me, it's nice and crunchy, it's dry, it sprinkles nicely, so it's it's totally different in the feeling. Compare taste between the fine and the large grain. I don't think you can really taste significant difference, but make difference when it's come to cooking and obviously dissolving and all these things, because the extra large grain doesn't dissolve that quick like the fine one. So finally, coconut sugar. This is what I have in front of me. So the coconut sugar is very similar to the Muscovado sugar. Not as sticky as and like a sandy, but have this kind of a type of moisture. Oh my gosh, I'm losing. It's not easy just to talk without doing anything. So the coconut sugar looks brown, like you've seen here. It's kind of like a nice dark golden brown, and it has obviously unmistakable caramel flavor and a little bit of the coconut. So it's, when it says coconut sugar, don't expect to be like a coconut in the face. It's not like the actual coconut inside. It's made usually in Southern Asia, and it's made from the sap of coconut palms. So it is introducing a little bit of the coconut flavor, but in general it's a kind of a caramel. So it's really lovely. I've used it to create a few kind of purées and syrups, and it's absolutely wonderful. In fact, like I mentioned, we're gonna use it with the tepache when we're making with the pineapple, so to make a little bit more like tropical-ish and introduce a little more flavor on the first fermentation, and then on the second fermentation we're gonna do something different, but that's in the next episode. Okay, so stay tuned. If you didn't subscribe until now to Mixology Hacks, please do, because for everybody who's been with me so far, I really want to say massive thanks, because the channel is just keep growing slowly but steady, and it's very promising. And no matter how much I talk and show you things, without you I won't be anywhere. So any and each one of you who subscribe, who support and who watch, it's mean a lot to me, and I hope we grown up the family. One more sugar, and this is the one which I don't know why I'm mentioning it, but you're probably gonna see it in some terms or somewhere in recipes. It says liquid sugar, and that's basically the sugar syrup which we all make to make cocktails or for desserts or anything. So it's a basically dissolved sugar in water and make it as a liquid. Now there is a one ingredient here which it kind of doesn't fall in the, or maybe do, in the sugar category, but it's gum arabic, we like to call it. Usually it's used to thicken things, make it thick and like a bond stuff because it's helping with that. And also when I'm talking about liquid sugar, in some cases it's used in the syrups commercially made, and you probably have seen in the shops like a gome or a gum syrup. But the gum arabic is not as sweet, so it needs to be combined with sugar. But the reason why they combine it with the sugar syrup is because the gum arabic it's helped to make a little bit more thicker and also stop the crystallizing back of the sugar. Okay, so I'm nearly done. Just 4 more points here, which it's just kind of a more informative for you. We may bump someday to some of them, creating ingredients. However, I'm pretty sure you've probably heard of glucose, of fructose, lactose, and sucrose. So that's a 4 different type, again, kind of a groups of sugar or categories, to put it this way. Glucose is naturally in your blood. We kind of extract glucose from different ingredients or from a food. You know you can buy glucose and you can mix it with the different other sugars because the glucose in general it's not that sweet, but it's helping like absorbing some ingredients faster. But I don't think we're ever gonna use glucose. The only time I've ever used glucose, and that's nothing related to mixology, but mix with a little bit of water when you do photography and you wanna kind of fake water drips, you know, on a beer bottle or something, you can spray and it's staying there because it doesn't dripping, because it's thick and it's kind of a fake steamed glass, or you know, when you pull out beer of the ice bucket and it's just staying there, nothing drip down. So when you make the pictures, it look like just fresh beer out of the ice bucket, and that's how they do it, if you're interested about that. But this is definitely a video tutorial for my photography channel, so that's a different story. Then you have the fructose. The fructose, the name as they say it, it's coming from fruits. So the fructose, it's natural sugar in the fruits, and this is why when I do sometimes syrups for myself, and I'm gonna mention this when I do some of these syrups, sometimes I tend, depends on the fruit, if it's naturally sweet, I may not add extra sugar like too much. Obviously you need to add extra sugar to make proper sugar syrup, but you may don't need to add as much as you add it with other fruits. It's just because obviously the crystallized sugar, it's helping with the sweetness, and of course with the preservative, it's like a preservative for the syrup, so it's keeping them longer. But you need to take on board a little bit the natural fructose in the fruits. So the fructose, it's a simple, like a naturally occurring in the fruits, and honey, sucrose, and a high fructose corn syrup, like I mentioned. So kind of trying not ever use corn syrup. I'm not against it, but it's not very healthy, so better don't do it as much. So the sucrose, it's a crystallized white sugar, what we talked earlier, produced by the sugarcane plant, and that's your sucrose. So this is basically worldwide used, and it's made up to 50% of glucose and 50% of fructose, you see? So that's when it's coming, the mixture, when you start using the glucose with the fructose to produce the sucrose. So it's very technical, this, and I don't want to bother you with that, but just to give you a little kind of idea, the sugar, it's, as much as it looks simple, it's not that simple because it's helping for lots of good stuff, but please use responsibly, okay? It could be bad, all right? And the final is the lactose, and can you guess what it is? Yeah, it's a lactose, it's coming from milk, it's found in the milk. Now, when we say lactofermentation, people most of the time think it's milk fermentation, but sometimes it's related to what we did with the lactofermented strawberry and honey syrup, which it involves salt inside, and obviously involve natural sugar from the strawberries and natural sugar or fructose from the honey. Okay, so there you go. In general we talk about sweetness and sugar, but there's a certain kind of a terms which you can use and understand what's actually going in your body when you're doing these ingredients and the amount of you're putting in. So this is it, I think, guys. Very strange for me just to talk without making anything. Originally I was thinking to make the different syrups and introduce, but I think a kind of information a little bit about sugar and about the differences and the extra flavor and color and the different characteristic of the sugars groups. It will help you in future to decide what you want to mix, what you want to use in certain scenarios and certain recipes. And of course, more we progress with the channel and preparing different ingredients, more we're going to talk about the sugar and it's going to get involved and we can learn more. For now, I will leave you. You can always come back to this video. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to like, share, leave us a comment. Check some of the old episodes if you missed them. And yeah, stay around. Thank you so much again for all of you who subscribed so far and watching the videos. It's much appreciated. If you're fancy a cocktail, don't forget to shake or stir. There's tons of recipes there to try something in the weekend, okay? But for now, I'm gonna leave you, and I'll see you next time with the pineapple tepache. Show you how to adjust the sweetness, because that was requested as well, and show you what to do with the second fermentation when you can flavor your tepache. But for now, yeah, I'm gonna go because I need to stop speaking. Bye!